Okay, this is something that I wanted to talk about a couple of days ago, and I'm still kind of shocked, just reading this because I never thought I'd ever see the day this would happen. But it seems like gamers, most gamers anyways, are very unhappy with Sony as of right now, especially those who live in the UK. I'm not too sure about America, but apparently there's been a 5.9 billion suit that's been filed against Sony because they've been apparently ripping people off in relation to digital video games. And basically, it said that Sony's been charging a 30% commission fee for all digital purposes that went through the UK PlayStation Store, and this is basically something that's been going on since August of 2016. And honestly, I never thought, Sony had to do something like that, or they need to do anything like that, because when it comes down to the console wars, Sony is basically number one. It seems like they've been more successful than both Nintendo and Microsoft during the past 2 decades, mainly during the teens decade, seeing how successful the PS4 was. But at the same time, it doesn't surprise me because even though the PlayStation 5 has only been out for it's been out for almost 2 years now. You look at Gran Turismo 7, there was nothing but a bunch of microtransactions that were included in that video game. And a lot of people were unhappy about that. And for the most part, despite the fact that Gran Turismo 7 is a solid racing game, the fact that Sony was trying to, grab more money from customers after they purchased the game was something that led to a lot of heat against Sony. So this report right here is just, I don't know what to say about it, but at the same time, I'm not too surprised. And my question is whether or not this is going to negatively affect the overall success of the PlayStation 5 throughout the rest of the decade, because I believe the PS5 has already managed to reach 20 million in terms of sales, and it hasn't been 2 years just yet, because I believe the PS5 came out back in November of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. But I do feel that right now it does have the upper hand over the Xbox Series X. And the thing is, Microsoft has never revealed the exact sales numbers for the Xbox Series X. And a lot of people are under the impression that the Xbox Series X is selling well and all that stuff, but for the most part, Microsoft is not embroiled in that much controversy, other than the fact that they acquired Activision Blizzard, and they were being investigated on whether or not it violated the Sherman Act, the Antitrust Act, where you basically can't create an environment where there's no fair competition. And it seems like Sony's being accused of monopolizing and basically charging customers unfair fees and all that stuff during a time period where inflation is starting to increase, and the price of goods and everything else is very high. When it comes down to video games or anything else, the last thing people want is to have to pay more out of their pocket for something that they barely have time for, because nowadays gaming is this complex experience where you buy a video game and then you have to buy DLC in many cases for bonus content that you can unlock, which is, that's understandable. But to have to use microtransactions to pay for something on the disc that you already purchased, a lot of people feel that's unacceptable, and it's something that's a turnoff to many people. And the thing is, the PlayStation 5 in of itself is very expensive. On average, I believe it's $499, and I believe that's around the same price that the Xbox Series X is. And you look at the Nintendo Switch, I believe the average price for that is $299. But to be fair, Nintendo Switch came out back in 2017, and a lot of people, even though the PlayStation 5 is very expensive, there are titles that people will play, or they'll basically buy the console in order to play certain titles and all that stuff. And I do feel that there's really no need to try and rip customers off or anything like that, especially if you're Sony, because Sony has basically, for the most part, been has been like the top dog in the console wars since the PlayStation 2 came out. I believe that was like 2000, so that's like 20 years at least. A lot of people could say that, back in like the late 2000s, the Wii console was more popular than the PlayStation 3, which was true, but for the most part, when it came down to third-party games, more people were buying PS3s than they were Xbox 360s, and not to take anything away from the Xbox 360s, because I own one, and the Xbox 360 is awesome, but like for the most part, Sony has always been considered like the top dog in relation to the console wars for the most part. And I honestly find like this suit to be quite shocking, especially considering the fact that I believe there's like 9 million people that basically filed this suit against Sony, and that's a ton of money. And I do feel that this could affect people's perception of Sony, and like whether or not they should buy a PlayStation 5 in the future, if they're gonna engage in predatory practices in terms of ripping consumers off. But this is something that's all alleged, you know what I'm saying? And the thing is, we have to wait and see where this goes and what comes of this. But I don't think Sony should have to resort to trying, ripping consumers off in order to make a profit, because I don't think, Nintendo does anything like that. And I don't think Microsoft does anything like that with the Xbox Series X, at least not to my knowledge or anything like that. But, I hope this doesn't negatively affect the sales of the PS5. And, just like any other game systems, over time, the PS5 is eventually going to, I guess, decrease in value, and the price is going to drop and all that stuff. But a lot of people think that this suit can end up costing Sony big, and it could potentially have a detrimental effect on the PS5 in relation to the console wars.